It is a mistake to treat AI as a mere result of progress in the digital age, when in all reality, the direction artificial intelligence development is going right now in the United States and in the West more generally is more reflective of a civic poison that threatens to destroy civilizations more than it is a novelty that promises to build them into a prosperous future age. And we cannot ignore this, my friends, if we seek to grapple with the implications of artificial intelligence, both as citizens, as moral agents, and as those of us who inherit the promise of American civilization. Artificial intelligence has been going at a breakneck, and might I even say artificial speed, where the tech industry has come into alignment with political order, and through programs like Project Stargate, which have imposed billions upon billions of dollars of funding into AI development, it seems as if this reality is being imposed from on high upon the people more so than this reality, this progress coming from the bottom up, as true progress should, from the people and conforming to the character of their circumstance. And the danger produced by this relationship between AI and political order and the sort of imposition of from on high is that it treats progress unmoored from moral limitations. It treats progress in terms of utility without considering the impacts it has on man's nature, how it might inflame his lower passions, how it might bring out the worst in him, and most importantly, how it might defy eternal truths that keep us as a civilization, as society, as human beings rooted in a strong foundation of movement. So, in this video, my friends, I will explore why I believe AI, as it is being treated right now, is a civilizational poison, and I will go forth to outline the various dangers it has in several sectors of our lives, and I'll provide a roadmap on how we can perhaps beat back these problems and frame the development of AI, and frame progress, most importantly, in a manner that will actually benefit us as human beings rather than destroy us by attacking the very core of who we are. But before I do that, my friends, I hope all of you are doing well this night. I am Christian Watson. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoy political and social commentary with a philosophical bent, then I must implore you, please like, share, comment, subscribe, do whatever you can, my friends, to ensure that this message is successful. My friends, this is a civic repair project. This is a civic conservative project. If you believe the eternal philosophical character of the American experiment is worth not just preserving, but articulating in a forthright, rigorous, and morally clear way into the modern age to grapple with the problems we're dealing with right now, then this is the channel for you. If you believe the various foes of American civilization deserve a rigorous and morally upright response, and America herself deserves a morally rigorous defense, this is the channel for you. Thank you guys so much for being here. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Please enjoy the video. So, it is going to be, I think, rather impossible to discuss the implications AI has to civilization without actually examining how AI is currently moving within civilization. And it's going to be even more of a moot point to examine how AI is moving in civilization without first examining the sentiments of those who are moving it. I always say on this channel that great minds talk about ideas and small minds discuss people. And I hold true to this maxim, my friends. But what I also say is that ideas, by virtue of manifesting through action, require human beings to move through the world. And therefore, sometimes the vessels, the humans, that ideas move through are going to be pretty important because they decide how the ideas manifest. The ideas don't direct us, we direct the ideas inherently. And so, when we look at those who are actually have their fingers on the thumb of AI development, it becomes very clear at how AI undermines, I think most importantly, human nature. And by undermining human nature, undermines a sound sense of our political order. And by doing that, ultimately threatens the existence of civilization. Peter Thiel, who is, I think, one of the biggest supporters of AI development right now, has gone as far to sacralize the conversation, to make the very topic of AI sacred, to the point where he has accused and suggested that those who criticize AI, like I do, or that you might, are actually legionaries of the Antichrist. People like Sam Altman, who created one of the largest LLMs, one of the largest chatbots, ChatGPT, that is currently impacting our society in the worst ways, from literally encouraging young people to off themselves to bringing people into weird cults that reflect the innermost desires unrestrained from any rational sense, which, by the way, the problem of desire is one of the issues we're going to talk about in a moment here. He has said that his goal is for there to be a merge between man and AI. And even if that merge is not the physical merger between man and machine, which is what the transhumanist vision is, it ought to be a kind of merger where AI actually directs society and man is simply a side character in his own show. So on and so forth. These are the visions of the people who are currently driving the institutional levers of AI progress in the United States and in the Western world, and we cannot ignore them if we wish to contextualize the direction this is going. Now, I must say this as well. It's not all apocalyptic. AI can indeed be used for good, but considering the context of those who are currently driving its development, we should not assume, a reasonable person should not assume, it is being used for good. And this leads me, my friends, to the specifics of the civilizational poison that AI actually is becoming right now. Now, AI has implications on both a moral level and a political level. By attacking human nature, its implications are fundamentally moral, but the effects are political. For the sake of simplicity, I'm actually going to begin with the political. I'm going to move down to the moral because I think, well, first of all, the political is founded upon the moral. It's founded upon a sense of human nature. If it is a sound idea of politics, if it's an unsound idea of politics, it's founded in some castle in the air, some abstract, imaginative idea that ultimately, when the effects of that hit reality, ends up in utter ruin and chaos and disorder, because reality is a harsh maiden. She will not countenance people to ignore her. She will always bring you back to her no matter if you like it or not. Nature is a harsh maiden, as I like to say. So, one of the ways AI really impacts us, and this is again seen in the alignment between all these tech companies and their AI development and political order, is that it undermines the very basis upon which political order sits, which is the rightly ordered nature of man. And the ethos of America, which makes America a rather civilizationally, morally unique civilization, a civilizationally, morally unique force in the world, is that America is actually not based on lineage or status or vitality, strength, courage. America is actually based on a fundamental appraisal of the principles of man. And number two, their context within a society. And then within that society, the virtues of that society creating a sound government. So if you undermine the well-ordered structure of man, you undermine his ability to have a functioning society. And then that therefore undermines his ability to have a sound political order. And by attacking human nature, the current progenitors of this AI development are also, I think, fundamentally attacking our ability to have good governance, which will almost assuredly lead to a kind of tyranny. AI attacks human nature, I think, in several different ways. Number one, it enables our desires to have an ultimate authority and sway over our conduct and pursuits. And this breaks a well-ordered man. So we have to understand human nature in two ways. Man is a being framed for society. He is a being that possesses a principle called sociability, which is our natural desire to go into positive engagement with other people. But even though we are framed for society and we are fitted for society, and man agrees with the desire to be into society, and that allows us to progress and flourish and to be ethical and to be morally righteous, there is also a vicious element of man. So there's a tension within man. There's the vicious passions, and then there's a social passion, social principles. The vicious principles would be like hatred, envy, anger, resentment. The social principles would be like justice, goodwill, benevolence, gratitude, veracity, fidelity, so on and so forth. I have to be correctly acting towards other people in order to have society. I have to be loyal and have good faith, fidelity, in order to actually have any social engagements. I have to actually understand the truth if my engagements are going to have any effect whatsoever. I have to have some sense of gratitude towards people if I'm going to have a moral character to my society. All of these things support society. Well, the vicious principles actually erode all of those things. But there's also a middle point as well between the vicious and the social. And that middle point, my friends, are things like our desires, are things like our imaginations. And when our imaginations are inflamed by something, They have the ability to overtake the vicious and the social and begin governing man, and therefore they break the structure of a rightly ordered man. Because a rightly ordered man is a man who is going to be ordered by his conscience, what is inherently right within him, his reason, which then interprets that for him so it can be actionable, and then the knowledge of first principles, which then guides the actions that are made actionable by the reason. But our desires actually break that by ignoring everything else and simply giving ourselves over to fleeting moments. I've actually made a video about this called The Tyranny of the Moment, where I discuss this phenomenon and how it actually is embodied in the social media. It's embodied within the sort of temporary debates we have about social media influencers and particular things that are big flashes in the pan in one sense, but then the next week they are nothing. It is giving ourselves over to moments, and by doing so, eroding our ability to be rightly ordered, eroding our understanding of issues at their depths, and giving us over to every superficial flight. So desire does this by allowing our imagination, not our conscience and not our reason, to become the governing principle of our action. And AI, by allowing you, especially chatbots, by literally being your canvas, by literally talking to you in a way that you can direct. They're not human beings, they are machines. And therefore you can direct how they talk, you can just direct the terms upon which you talk to them, you can then direct how they're going to talk to you. Whereas with actual human beings, you can't do that because human beings are dynamic. And they are going to have a different personality, they're going to have different beliefs, different values, so on and so forth, even if they have similarities. And that's going to cause tension. And that tension produces either affection and connection or resentment and enmity. But when it produces affection and connection, civilization grows. But when you remove the human element entirely and you give yourself over to desire, and desire becomes the canvas in which you interact with the world, there is now no goal towards refinement. There is now no emphasis on how your conduct affects other people. There is now no emphasis on the outside world. You retreat inward and you become the governor of your own world. And this erodes a rightly ordered person because now you can't really structure yourself in the correct way. But not only that, this erodes your thinking. This is the second offense it has against human nature. It erodes your thinking by making things even more easier for us, making the pursuit of information even more easier for us in a way that does not require interaction. One of the best habits of cultivating a sound mind and sound habits of the mind, which then lead us to substantive knowledge, is our ability to seek out information, reflect upon information, critically evaluate information, and then apply that information to the world. Joseph Butler, one of my favorite philosophers, indeed said that if the information and knowledge cannot be applied, it may not necessarily be beneficial to our overall development as a man or our moral conduct. Well, search engines actually still encourage this sentiment within man by basically having us have to search through different results we get for different inquiries, having us actually have to dig into them rather than actually just giving it all to us like an AI will on demand. So even the search engine encouraged this questing feature within man for his knowledge, whereas AI destroys it, and by AI destroying it, essentially makes us basically epistemic slaves to AI. It makes our knowledge formation weaker, and it makes our reliance on an external force stronger. If you want to test this out, whenever you're in a debate on social media, whenever you're on a social media platform, if someone asks Grok or whoever for the answer to a question that they probably would have been better served getting themselves, you will see this phenomenon in effect. But also, as I mentioned before, AI, as it is right now, disintermediates the social aspect of man. And by disintermediating the social aspect of man, it takes us away from, again, that relationship that we must have with others to have society. And then it also takes us away from the parameters upon which our conduct is rightly informed, which is how we treat others, which is our relationship with society, and the refinement that happens throughout the process of trying to figure out how to be a just person, trying to figure out how to be a truthful person, trying to figure out how to be loyal, trying to figure out what it actually means to have fidelity, trying to figure out, am I actually demanded to be a hero, trying to figure out, does this situation actually demand my obligation? These are very complex questions that actually move us in our everyday lives to become better, more rightly ordered people. But AI takes us away from that by giving you all of the features of human interaction without any of the substance. You can chat with something. So, for example, you can chat with the chat box. Chatting is a social feature. You can get information. Well, if you have smart friends or friends in general that know things, you get information from them. You can interact. Interaction is the core social feature. So if you can have all of that without all of the messiness of human complexity, And you have all that in your phone. You can have accessibility. You can customize your experience. And by customizing your experience, you actually remove yourself from the stream of human refinement in society. And this is another problem. AI undermines our moral principles by making our experiences as human beings, rather than making them restrained and bound by facts and circumstances of life, which they ought to be if we are to actually grapple with the world as it is, not as we want it to be. It allows us to customize our experience perpetually. And this leads to the tyranny of customizability, which essentially allows us to, from everything to our social relationships to eventually our own external influences, which virtual reality does. Virtual reality puts us in a place where we can literally customize the world around us. It essentially gives desire a free rein to act upon the world around you in a way that does not respect anything beyond your own limited views. And man, being a limited creature, needs to have other people, needs to have things outside of himself to actually understand the world, to actually grow and be a just person. But when we retreat within ourselves, we remove that possibility and we basically regress in the name of technological progress. And this regress actually is actually affirmed within us by, again, our desire being the standard. These are the implications that AI has, my friends, for our society. And then we have to understand how it's being sold to us, my friends, and that is by inventing a new idea of progress. Progress, my friends, is one of those words that has taken on many meanings throughout history. In the Enlightenment era, progress may have simply meant our thinking being refined and our action being brought into accordance with a more observational view of human nature, which is a commendable goal and a great goal. But as the 20th century marched along, progress began to mean something entirely different. It became detached from the actual behaviors and actions of human beings on the ground level. And it became the subject of institutions, the subject of governments, the subject of movements, subject of grand things that go beyond man's experiences or beyond man's limited capacity and stretches beyond him to create pursue these grand utopian visions. And this has given us, I think, a lot of different things, whether it be the progressive movement, whether it be other things, a sort of redefinition of American moral life from an emphasis on self-reliance to an emphasis upon governmental assistance or emphasis upon power, giving you not just your means to survive, but power giving you your rights, the idea of positive rights, which then in a sense means power then gives you your ability as a moral agent, because our rights are what actually allow us to be more responsible. So power then forms our character. These are the implications that have happened throughout the past century or so when it comes to the idea of progress. Well, how AI is being pushed right now, especially when it comes to programs like Project Stargate and others that actually view AI as a driving force, it's being seen solely for utility. It's being seen solely in a strategic way to compete against the other countries that may also be developing and to keep up with the pace of the modern world without actually asking us the question, does our keeping up with the pace of the modern world, A, disrespect eternal truths that actually guide how we ought to act as human beings, B, disrespect the limits of man that should also guide how policy is framed? Because if a policy is framed without a judicious consideration of man's moral limits and his ethical position, how in the world can that policy not bring anything except ruination and bring anything but disordered lives of man and the civilization in general? And also, most importantly, does this idea of progress affect how these things have a impact on how well we as human beings can refine ourselves amid new novelty? Because human beings throughout history have learned to adapt to novelty, but some forms of novelty, like for example the existence of industrial cities, still have a psychological impact on the well-being and the ability of human beings to process information along. By industrial cities, I simply mean the sort of overstimulation that they bring still is something that man has to grapple with, even though I think that the envision of the city is actually a fundamentally good thing, because it reaches to the heights of man's ability to craft civilization. But in the process, we can make errors that actually make it a little bit harder for us to appreciate the world around us in the name of progress, so on and so forth. If progress is unmoored from moral limits, and it is based instead on utility, as the current idea of progress surrounding AI is, how in the world can you ensure it will not lead to a kind of tyranny? a kind of ruin? Well, you most certainly cannot, and this is the issue. AI's justifications are entirely in terms of utility, or entirely in terms of a sort of deterministic understanding of how the way the modern world is going. Well, this is how everything is going, therefore you ought to go this way as well. No. We ought to push the brakes on every single thing that would seem to disrespect the frame of man and the necessary conditions for his not just survival, but also his rightly ordered nature. We ought to push against anything that would disregard eternal ideas and in the name of utility. We ought to push against anything that will put us in a worse posture, perhaps a posture of moral regress in the name of progress. And by considering AI solely for its effects, but not for the substance of its effects on the human being, we are completely missing the mark, and we are endeavoring in a grave, grave error. So this new idea of progress that is framed by the push of AI is also quite concerning, and I think that it is also quite poisonous to our civilization. My friends, we have to understand something, that the future is, I believe, either an opportunity or a detriment, whether it be your future, whether it be the future of a country. And we are not endowed to effect grand things in our limited capacity as people. However, we are endowed to have a small role, but an essential role in how our societies turn out. And if we have a society that puts desire over duty in the following of principles, if we have a society that allows our imagination to run wild with the unmoderated use, the morally unmoderated use of a sort of counterfeit social interfaces like chatbots, if we have a society where utility is prided over the nature and the restraints of man's nature, if we have a society where all these things happen to be true, then we don't have much of a society at all. We have a civilization teetering towards, I think, ruination in the name of some kind of elevation. And that is not something that we can accept as Americans or as Westerners. So, my friends, I would urge all of you to reassess your own relationship with AI, and then to, more importantly, also reflect on the implications it can have towards us. And then, I would even say, attempt to harness it for good. Attempt to harness it to push people back into connection with each other. Attempt to harness it maybe to figure out things you hadn't figured out before, and then encourage your own questing, as I say, the questing impulse for knowledge. Harness it to actually bolster your refinement as a human being, rather than outsourcing it to the machine. If we were to do that, we may be able to cope with AI like we cope with many other technological advancements. But if we don't do that, I'm not afraid. I'm afraid our civilization will not survive the poison currently threatening to eat through it and destroy it. My friends, like, share, comment, subscribe, do whatever you can. If you want to be a part of this civic repair project, if you want to fight against decay and fight towards a roadmap for building, a roadmap towards moral architecture, and a roadmap for civilizational survival, join the Pensive cohort. I am recruiting a cohort of young thinkers to go into the culture, to go out there and push forth the values of America, the sort of Enlightenment era philosophies of America with philosophical rigor and moral clarity. Join the Discord, join the Pensive cohort. My friends, if you wish to donate to me, to support me, that helps me a lot. It'll help me continue bringing content to you. My friends, study history, study philosophy, remain morally convicted, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.